Did you know that the chance of a werewolf win is significantly higher if the last werewolf standing is the voodoo werewolf? Well, today I will tell you exactly why and give you hints on how to achieve that W as voodoo werewolf in Wolvesville. The voodoo werewolf is a werewolf with an evil aura and has very strong abilities at its disposal. Twice per game you can select a player at night and that player cannot vote or talk during the next day, like a grumpy grandma mute. Once per game you can also disable a player at night by selecting that player at day. Since the farther you come, the more meaningful these abilities will be, here are a couple of tips on how to make it to the end game and when and on who to use your abilities. Prepare a role claim. Let's make something clear real quick. If you want to make it far in a game of Wolvesville, usually your best bet is playing along with the village and blending in perfectly. In a lobby with decent to good players, you will see a couple of players claiming their roles early on so that they don't need to be checked by seers and that they cannot fall victim to false accusations later on in case the seers are dead. If this happens and you do nothing in terms of claiming, you will quickly be checked by the seer or whatever informer is in your game. Rather than being dependent on what villagers do to you and themselves, why not dictate the game yourself? Strong but tricky claims are Aura Seer, Spirit Seer, Red Lady and most other informers. You need to provide constant information and preferably as correct as possible so that people actually trust you and leave you alive. Depending on the setup, you can also claim RRV, which embodies a plethora of possible roles and gives you more freedom to claiming later on, but it's a little bit less reliable for the village. If you have no RVs in your setup, go with a protective role like Tough Guy, Bodyguard, Doctor or Beast Hunter. Only claim Witch or Marksman if you're really being pushed and you need to buy that extra night to say that you are gonna kill someone that night as proof. With a proper claim you can confuse the village, live longer as a werewolf, which allows you to use your abilities in a better way and potentially get some villagers killed by the village. Act village alike. Blending in with the village goes further than just claiming a village side role. Pretend to be happy when a werewolf dies, don't hesitate on voting werewolves if they are exposed anyways, and communicate with villagers about who they suspect. You need to live long, so be friendly and helpful to the village. If the village is really certain about lynching a villager, you can actually not vote the villager as long as the villager still gets killed, and place your doubts in the chat to gain legitimacy. When there's a matter of you versus a real villager and either one gets lynched, point out mistakes that they made. You can even come up with false accusations, good chance that some villagers will actually be tempted to read back the chat or that they actually fall for it straight away. The next 3 hints are specific for the voodoo werewolf, as the first 2 are actually useful for any werewolf. Do not mute your scapegoat. If you have a role claimed, there is someone who actually has that role. We call that person your scapegoat. Well, obviously, if you're going to mute that scapegoat, the village will immediately know that they are at least not the voodoo werewolf and are most likely good. Why else would that player be muted, is what the village will think. Only mute your scapegoats if you find yourself in a 1 vs 2 situation and the end game, because then muting the scapegoat puts you at the same level of the village with voting, and next night you can then kill someone and win. Something you could make use of, however, is role blocking your scapegoat at night, especially if they said you would kill you or just anyone to prove their legitimacy. By role blocking them for that night and next day saying you were role blocked, you can postpone them proving their role and get an extra kill. You can use the I was role blocked argument once, but only if you actually role block your scapegoat. Don't role block a confirmed seer and then say that you were role blocked, because the seer simply has more trust and this will thus work against you. Who to block for the night. Considering strengths and weaknesses of roles, every role is vulnerable at a different time. Whereas some roles like Seer and Aura Seer can be either role blocked or muted with effect, most roles are significantly stronger in either day or night. At night, the strong roles include Protectors, Seers, Medium, Jailer and Warden, Witch and Forger, Beast Hunter and Trapper, Ghost Lady, Marksman, Baker and Grumpy Grandma, and solo killers at the end of the game. If you block a Protector, you can usually attack more freely, whereas blocking Seers will mean that they have no information for that night. If you block the Medium, like we did in this game, they cannot revive anyone and you get a shot at killing the Medium without revival. Blocking Jailer and Warden will limit their use of bullets and they cannot interact or see interaction with the imprisoned ones. Witch, Forger and Marksman are good to role block if they need to prove themselves, and Beast Hunter and Trapper can be limited in moving or setting up traps. The ghost lady cannot visit if you blocked her, so you can easily kill her. The baker and grumpy grandma can reinforce the village in voting, but they do that at night, so blocking them gives you a slightly better chance at next voting phase. Finally, solo killers should be blocked if they are about to kill a werewolf. This scenario will not occur often, but just in case you get into the scenario, this could be useful. Who to mute for the day. As discussed in the previous section, blocking is good for limiting information, disabling players to prove themselves and getting a better shot at killing important roles. There are a couple of roles, however, that are mostly strong at day. Let's take a look at them. Seers, Mayor and Preacher, Red Lady, Cupid and Instigator, solo killing at the end, and any confirmed villager that is active in chat. Muting Seers postpones their moment of sharing the information. Since it only postpones it, you'd be better off by role blocking them at night, but of course, consider you only have one use of the night ability and two of the day ability. The Preacher and Mayor are probably the most vulnerable roles to muting, since their strength is during the voting phase. Muting the Red Lady is also an option, since the Red Lady cannot announce who they will visit and or tell the village who they visited last night, and consequently their night ability becomes less useful in the upcoming night, especially if the medium is already in the urn. Mute the Cupid or Instigator if the couple is a main threat to your werewolf victory. Seriously, taking away a third vote in favor of the couple can save games. Like role blocking, muting solo killers is also a good option at the end of the game when you need to get rid of that solo killer. Finally, muting confirmed villagers that are actively trying to find werewolves is always a safe bet, simply because you can change the dynamics of the game and get more power, whilst not taking the risk that you confirm a scapegoat as good. All these tips combined should help you up that win rate of the Voodoo Werewolf, and if it helped you indeed, remember to subscribe and check out more how to play as videos and other strategy videos that I offer on this very channel. I will see you later, and don't be a traitor. Goodbye.
And for that question on why the abilities become stronger late game, well, if you can disable the only seer at the end of the game, or mute the mayor when their vote make up half of the vote, then you're gonna gain more with your ability than simply muting a seer early on, and then spreading the information just a day later, where the aura seer was not muted and actually found one of your mates on that same day.